All right. Good morning. Good morning. I just want to double check all my streams are working on TikTok, on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube. Looks like everything is working. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, welcome. I'm going to introduce you to myself. My name is Rachel Taylor. I have been in education just shy of 4 years. With Archer Review, it'll be 3 come the end of January. And I absolutely love what I get to do. I've worked with thousands of students all across the country and the world, and I look forward to having you all join me today as we talk about legal and ethical concepts. I don't know about you guys, but when I took this class, it was the last semester of nursing school, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's a little boring for me. I was like, oh, there's so many laws, there's so many different legal and ethical concepts for us to know. And so today, I hope I can make this 1 hour more fun, more engaging, where you get that key information down that you really need. Now, feel free to share the live. If you know somebody else that's going to take the NCLEX exam, or maybe they're even in nursing school, tag them. We've got resources for you. This is great for those that are just starting nursing school, at the end of nursing school, or prepping for the NCLEX exam. So welcome everyone, glad to have you here. Let's go ahead and let's get started. So today we're going to utilize Slido. If you want to take your phone and scan that QR code and type in AR Legal and let me know where are you joining us from. Or you can go to slido.com if you don't have a QR code scanner and type in AR Legal. Welcome. I see lots of people joining. Glad to have you here this morning. Thanks for hanging out. Okay, Maryland, Toronto, amazing. Texas, US, New York, Dallas, Minnesota. I grew up there. Welcome. Philippines, Pennsylvania, Jamaica, California. Amazing. Yukon, Canada, North Carolina, Brooklyn. Cool. Got a lot of people in the Philippines, Dallas, and New York, I feel like. Amazing. London, cool. India. Man, I feel like it's really late for you guys in India. Glad to have you here. Japan, amazing. Florida. Hope you guys are doing okay there in Florida after the big storm. Nepal, awesome. Glad to have you here. Massachusetts, all right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I always love asking where everyone's joining from because I think it's really cool that we are all in this meeting together, right? Like we're all over the world and we get to hang out together to talk about nursing, which I think is really amazing. I love tech for that reason. So I want you guys just to take a moment and to think about why is it actually important that we understand legal and ethical concepts? Why do we need to know this? Because I know my attitude as a senior, I think I had senioritis in this class and I was like, oh my goodness, the class is never going to end. It felt so long and I didn't love it, but it's super important. And I got really important skills from, really making sure I understood legal and ethical concepts. So why do you guys think they're important for us to know? Conflicts, they always happen. You are right. We need to protect the patient. Absolutely. We want to protect our clients, but we also want to protect ourselves, right? If you think about it, everything we do as nurses is being watched, right? We're charting everything we do. People know exactly what we're doing. And if we make a mistake, it can have major legal consequences. And so we have to make sure that we protect our clients first and foremost, but that we also protect our licenses, right? And that we make sure that we're following the laws. Absolutely. It does allow us to make informed decisions. Yes, I agree with it. Perfect. It looks like you guys are saying a lot of the same thing. Well, the first thing that I see come up on exams all the time is terminology. If you don't understand the basics of this terminology, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get these legal and ethical concepts correct. So that's the first thing we really want to start with. And you're going to get tested on these in nursing school and on your NCLEX exam. Now, if you're someone who struggles with memorization, this is a little bit harder, but if you're someone who likes memorization, memorizing these is a little helpful. And I've got a few tips to get you through each one. So the first one we're going to talk about is justice. And justice is truly asking us, is it fair? Are we distributing care evenly? Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. If I have a client in the ICU, mechanically ventilated, and I have a client who's going home tomorrow, is it just that I give them the same amount of my time? Would that be just if, patient A and patient B each got 3 hours of my time? Is that just? What do we think? Yes or no? No. Why? Because I need to think about the acuteness of the client. The client who's mechanically ventilated requires more of my time. And based off of their, abilities to not have any self-care, that's my responsibility. They're going to need more of my time than that individual who's going to be discharged the next day. So when it says to distribute care evenly and to administer care fairly, I'm taking into account, what does my client actually need? It doesn't mean, they're both getting the same amount of resources and time. It means, are they getting the resources and time that they require for their diagnoses? Now, the next word is beneficence. And when I think of beneficence, I like to think of the word benefit. So when you think of the word benefit, it should remind you that beneficence means to do good. Oftentimes, I see this term confused with non-maleficence. And we're going to get to that term next because it sounds a little similar. People are like, oh, it's just opposite. But beneficence is to benefit your client. It's to do good for your client. Now, the other thing I want you to think of is let's do an example here. Let's say we've got a client, they're on hospice and they're in the dying process and there's no family there. Beneficence would be me sitting there and putting my hand next to theirs. And if they want to put their hand on top of mine, they can. Beneficence is being a client advocate. When we bring good to our client, when we do the right thing for them, that is beneficence. And that's something we want to practice. Now, if you're like, hey, for some reason, I can't get the Slido code to work, that's okay. Just drop it in the chat. You don't have to utilize the code. That's fine. All right. Now, our next term is non-maleficence. So when we think of non-maleficence, the word maleficence, has anyone seen the movie Maleficent? Anyone ever seen that movie? The term maleficence means harm, right? And so non-maleficence means to not do harm. So it's not really the opposite of beneficence. It's actually going to be to not do harm. So beneficence, we were benefiting them. We were doing something good. Here, we're not doing harm. So here's an example. Let's say a provider orders a medication and the dosage is too high. It's contraindicated. Well, what are we going to think of? We're going to question the provider's order and we're not going to give the medication if it's not in a safe dosage range. That's non-maleficence. We're not going to do harm, whether it's intentional or non-intentional. I think this part is important to remember. It doesn't matter if you knew you were necessarily causing harm. You should, as a trained licensed nurse, know what is safe and what is not safe. This is why it's important to know medications. If I give a medication that's contraindicated in a scenario, I would cause harm to my client. Now, I will say that doesn't mean mistakes don't happen from time to time. Mistakes can happen. And we want to make sure that we are very open about them when they do. But non-maleficence is we're not going to cause harm to our client. The other thing is, what if we were just negligent? What if we didn't take care of our clients' basic cares? Would that be non-maleficence, or would we have broken that legal law? What do we think? Or what have we broken? What do we think? If I neglect my client's basic cares, did I follow the ethical concept of non-maleficence? No, I broke that ethical concept because I didn't meet their basic needs. I intentionally did harm when I've neglected their basic needs. All right, we've got another Slido question coming your way. If you can't utilize Slido, just drop your answer in the chat. Yeah, someone said abandon the client. That actually would break the legal ethical concept of non-maleficence if we abandon our client. It's illegal to do so as a nurse. You cannot just abandon a client. So what ethical principle below is accurately paired with a way that ethical principle is applied to nursing practice? I'm going to give you guys a moment to think through this one. Drop your answers in the chat so you can drop them in Slido. Whatever's easier for you is totally fine. What do we think? Welcome for those of you joining. Today we're talking about legal and ethical concepts. Okay. Ooh, I'm seeing some mixed answers here. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's see how you guys answered. All right, a lot of you said justice. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this further. The obligation to be fair, equally dividing time and resources. Am I going to give the same amount of time and resources to two clients with totally different needs? No, they're going to need a different amount of time and resources. When I've been in the ICU, I've had clients on drips that need me to titrate their drip every 15 to 20 minutes, who are actively coding, right? If I have someone actively coding, they're going to take more time and resources than someone who's getting ready to go home. We have to base it on the client's acuity of what resources they need. Now, what would, also break justice is if I'm just like totally neglecting a client over there and not giving them any time. That's not what we're saying here. We're just saying that they're going to need a different amount of time and resources depending on the client's needs. Then we've got veracity. When we think of veracity, what is that? It means to tell the truth. I always think of the word verified, like it's been verified, it's the truth. That's what helps me remember it. And what that is we are not going to lie to our clients. If they ask me, hey, I overheard this, is this correct? And it is, I'm going to tell them. Or if they misheard me, I'm going to let them know, but I will not lie to my client. As nurses, we are supposed to be a trusted profession. We are supposed to have integrity. We do not lie to our clients. Now, where sometimes I see that people get caught up on this is when we have someone with Alzheimer's or dementia and they say, Rachel, I got to go milk the cows. And then, my wife's got breakfast for me. And I know their wife has passed away and I know they don't live on the farm anymore. I'm going to tell them that every single time they ask me, because in that scenario, I'm doing harm to my client because they're reliving that their spouse or loved one has died pretty much every time they ask because they don't remember that. So in that scenario, when it's Alzheimer's dementia, I'm going to say, oh yeah, let's get breakfast first. And then we can see how the cows are doing. That farm hand that you guys were working with, he was going to go take care of the cows this morning. That's something that I've said, and that's totally appropriate. But if they are, alert oriented, we're not lying to our patients. We're wanting to do what's best for them. Now, beneficence, doing no harm. That's non-maleficence. Break down the word. Beneficence means to benefit. We're going to do good. Non-maleficence, non means no, maleficent is harm, so no harm is going to occur there. And then fidelity. Fidelity, I want you to think of the word faithful. I want you to think of the word faithful. And the reason why is fidelity is when we do what we say we're going to do. If I say, Annie, I'm going to be back in 30 minutes with your pain medication, I come back in 30 minutes with that medication. If I'm back in 2 hours with it, I just broke fidelity. And really, one of the biggest things that I think of when we break these legal and ethical concepts is we have just hurt our rapport with our clients. If we break rapport with our clients, what do you think is going to happen? What do you guys think? Drop it in the chats. If I break rapport with my client, what's going to be the result of that? If your Slido code's not working, just drop your answers in the chat. It must be working for some. I got 60 responses on the last one. They're going to lose our trust. And the problem is when they lose our trust, when they lose our confidence, they are not going to tell us when something is wrong. And we can miss changes in their care. We can miss changes in their assessment because they're not comfortable telling us about it. And so we want to make sure that we are building rapport with our clients, not breaking it. All right, awesome job on that one, everybody. Here's another practice question. The nurse is planning a staff development conference about changing the process of how clients are seen at a clinic to a first come, first served basis. This proposed change will model which ethical principle? What do we think? What do we think? By the way, if this is your first time joining us, we go live pretty much every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then CCRN goes live every Tuesday on the same platform. So the only place we don't always go live on is TikTok. So if you're joining on TikTok, I definitely recommend following us on Facebook, YouTube. You can get up to 4 free webinars every single week. All right. 10 more seconds on this one. Let's see how we did. Okay. Let's look at this one together. What I like to do is I personally don't like to read all 4 options and then decide. I like to do one at a time and eliminate as I go. If you are somebody who debates with yourself, do I have anyone here who does that? You maybe debate back and forth with yourself of, is this one right? Is this one right? Yeah, I see lots of you raising your hand in Zoom and saying, yes, that's me. If you struggle with that, this is what will make the change for you is you need to stop debating and instead go through them one at a time, because that's going to help you feel, okay, yeah, this feels right in my gut. I have this instinct and I want you to learn to follow that instinct. Okay. So let's go through this one together. Woo, nice. You guys are impressive. So what I would do is I would go through them. So I would say, is this justice? And if we think about it, if it doesn't match the ethical principle of justice, it means that no one's getting special treatment. They got there, they get to be seen in the order that they got there, right? It doesn't matter what race they are. It doesn't matter how much money they have. It doesn't matter because they know somebody in the back. That would be breaking justice, right? And then paternalism. When we think of paternalism, what this is it's basically a healthcare worker is going to make a decision for the client based off of, I'm trying to think of how to explain it, based off like their best interest is kind of the term paternalism. And so let's say, for example, someone had a DNR, but then they, right before this, say, if something happens to me, I want to be resuscitated. And 2 nurses, well, this depends on the state. Let's say a physician heard it, because the nurse thing depends on the state you're in. But let's say a physician heard it, and then the patient codes, and they're like, they just told me they want to be resuscitated. I am overriding their DNR because they just verbally said to me that, yes, I want to be resuscitated. That's kind of how I would explain paternalism. Non-maleficence, we've already talked quite a bit about. And then veracity, remind me, what is that? Veracity is what? Tell me what it means in the chats. What does it mean? Telling the truth. It's to verify. It's to say, yes, like this is the truth. We're not going to lie. We're going to tell the truth. Absolutely. Nice job on that one. Now, real quick, lots of you are like, hey, this is my first time at an Archer Review webinar. So I want to tell you what Archer Review is, what we do. We have really programs from across the lifespan of the nurse. So whether you are, trying to get into nursing school, taking the TEAS exam, we've got resources to help you. Whether you're in nursing school and you're like, hey, I need a companion product that's going to walk with me through my nursing courses so that I can be more confident through nursing school, we've got a product for you. It's really awesome and free, by the way, right now. I would look it up, Archer Review Nursing School. Tons of free resources for you. And then we've got our NCLEX product. And what I want to tell you about is our SurePass program. This is our #1 sold package. People love our SurePass program. And here's why people love it and use it all over the world. Because we have a Q bank with 2,900 questions for the RN. Over 800 of those are going to be next-gen NCLEX style questions with your unfolding case studies and your standalone NGN item types. We have over 100 hours of on-demand videos. We have a 3-day live review. It's a 24-hour high-yield NCLEX review. Love it. We have over 1,000 people attend it almost every single month. And then we have daily live lectures that come with this package. It is Monday through Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday are live case studies. They're 1 hour. Tuesdays and Thursdays are 3-hour content lectures from 9 to noon Central. We really have a robust package with SurePass. So if you have just started your NCLEX prep, or maybe you're coming here and you've tested before and you just don't know where to get started for this next attempt, the SurePass program is definitely where I recommend most students go. I would say 90% of students I point to SurePass. Why? Because I see students pass every single day utilizing this program. Now, if you're like, I don't know if SurePass is for me, or maybe you already have it, or maybe you just have further questions on it, that's okay. If you have questions about what SurePass is, you can always email us at nclextutors@archerreview.com. We would gladly answer any questions you have about the package and help make sure that you get a program with us that best suits you, your needs, and your budget. All right, you guys heard me talk enough about our product. Let's keep going through our legal and ethical concepts. So the next thing we want to talk about is accountability. Now, when you just think about the word accountability, what do you think of? Let me know in the chats. What do you think of when I say accountability? If you use your phone to scan the QR code, you just pull up your camera typically, or you can find a QR code scanner. But I'll have Annie, who's in the chat, post the links for Archer Review. She'll post the links for Archer Review in the chats for you guys. Just let her know what you're wanting the link for. If it's for nursing school, if it's for SurePass, or if it's just for our general site, let us know what you're wanting the link for. Okay, somebody said owning your actions is accountability, being responsible, no matter if it is good or bad. I love this. It's that there are consequences for our actions, and we are responsible for those consequences. This one's not new to us, right? I feel like we're taught accountability when we're little kids because natural consequences totally happen, right? Like I remember my mom being like, Rachel, don't do that. And you know what I did? I ended up like falling over, scraping my knees, all the things like, oh, yep, I should have listened to my mom. Now I have to take accountability. Now I've got these scraped up knees, right? And so sometimes in nursing, things go wrong in a situation and we have to take responsibility. So I'm going to tell you about something that I saw go wrong as a nurse. I think this happened when I was still a student. We had gone over the importance of how we take out a central line and how a central line is placed. And we were taking care of a client with a central line. I had gone to the bathroom, I came back out, and I saw everyone was in the room. So as I walk in the door, they're moving the client, and I go help, but I hadn't gotten there yet. And the central line got caught on the bed and ripped out of the client. Not how a central line is supposed to be taken out. The nurse that was in charge of the client, despite her not knowing exactly, who made it get ripped out, she was like, I'm going to take responsibility for this. And the reason why was it was her client. She was running the move from bed to bed, and it got ripped out. And so we had to take responsibility. And when we take responsibility, what's our number one priority? Is our number one priority ourselves? No. Our number one priority is the client. So the very first thing we did was we made sure our patient was safe. We made sure that our client was okay, that everything was stabilized, that there were no concerns. We did that. We called the doc. They came and assessed everything. Everything ended up being totally fine. There was zero complications from it occurring. Thank goodness, right? But if there had been, we had to stabilize the client first and then kind of deal with the mess after. Now, in a situation like this, there's something we would probably fill out. What would we fill out? What do you guys think? What would you want to fill out in this scenario? An incident report. Now, remind me, does the incident report go in the client's chart, or do we use it internally? Yeah, we don't put incident reports themselves into the client's chart, but what I do put in the client's chart is what happened, right? Like, I'm not hiding that it happened. The incident report, though, is used so that we can assess what happened, why did it happen, and how do we prevent it from happening again, okay? All right, fidelity, faithfulness. It's that we do what we say we're going to do. And the reason why this is so important is we want our clients and their loved ones to trust us. What's one of the worst things? If you've ever had a family member in the hospital, I know I have. One of the worst things is when you can't leave that family member because you don't trust the care they're going to get. We're not going to be those type of nurses. We want to be the kind of nurses that our clients' family members are like, oh, I'm going to go get some food. I'm going to go get some rest. I'm going to go take a shower, and I'll come back in a couple hours, because they trust us to care for their loved ones. That's the kind of nurses that we want to be. We don't want to be the nurses that the family feels like they're not allowed to leave at all because they're not sure if something will happen while they're gone, or they're not sure that their loved one's needs will be met. All right, now autonomy. When I say autonomy, what does that mean to you? What do you guys think? Autonomy. I will send you guys the link. On TikTok, it's a little bit harder because you can't send links. But if you just search Archer Review, that will kind of get you where you need to be. I'll send you the link, but it won't be clickable on TikTok, unfortunately. So once you go to Archer Review with that link I just sent you, you're going to want to go to the nursing portion, and then you can click whatever is applicable to you, whether that's PN, RN, whether that is nursing school. You can just click whatever one you're needing. All right. So autonomy. I think of the word auto, and auto means self. It means that they are able to be self-deciders, right? Like auto is self. They get to decide for themselves what is best for them. I'm not coercing them into decisions. I am not going to, say, oh, this is what I would do, and not let them decide for themselves. But do I need to make sure they have all the facts before they decide? Do I need to make sure as the nurse that they are well informed about what's going on? Absolutely, right? Like, I'm not just going to be like, oh, sorry, I knew you misunderstood this and I didn't correct you. I have to make sure that they understand the benefits and the consequences before they make the decision. Our patients have the right to refuse. Whether we think it's best for them or not, they have the right to refuse, and we do not break that right. So here's a common one that could come up on the NCLEX. Let's say you have a client, they're Jehovah's Witness, and they need a blood transfusion or they will die without it. Their religion says what? That they are not going to probably take that blood transfusion. I'm not going to say that's everyone. Maybe some do, but from what I've seen in my practice, they will refuse it. Is it my right to judge them or to force the blood transfusion on them? Is that my right? No. My right is to support them and to encourage them in what is best for them and their needs, okay? Yeah, I support their wishes. Now, what if it's a really tricky scenario? Let's say instead it's like a kiddo. It's like a 5-year-old that needs the blood transfusion. What would we do in that scenario? What do you guys think? Let's say it's a really tricky situation. The parent is deciding care for their kid and something just doesn't seem quite right. What would I do in that situation? Okay, some of you are like, the child gets to speak, the parent gets to speak, and what if they want different things? Who would I bring this to? What would I consider? Yeah, I'm definitely a patient advocate. Who would I bring it to? An ethical board. We have ethical boards in hospitals for these tricky situations. If it is a gray area and you are not sure, bring in the ethics committee. There are some circumstances that don't get answered perfectly because they're in between the lines of what is right and what is wrong. And I understand you're like, hey, the parents have the autonomy, and you're right. In most situations, they totally do. But if we're not sure, we're going to bring it to an ethical board. Now, someone said, what if the patient is unconscious, like in an adult? If they're unconscious, I don't know who they are, where they came from, but they came into the ED, we provide care. If I don't know if it's a John Doe, we provide life-saving measures. We don't need consent in that situation. Consent is considered implied if they are in a life or death situation. Okay. Veracity, to tell the truth. Okay. Let's think about this one for a moment. Let's say a kiddo is going to get an IV and I have to place the IV. Am I going to say, oh, it's not going to hurt at all, you're going to be fine? Should I say that to the 5-year-old I'm about to put an IV in? No, because it's going to hurt some, right? Like, it's not going to be comfortable or enjoyable. So we tell the truth. We're not going to lie about when pain might happen. We need to be honest. And really, if you think about it, especially with kids, if I lie now that, hey, no, it's not going to hurt, and it does, now every time I do care, they are going to be fearful that it is going to cause pain. So we want to make sure that we're always telling the truth, even if they maybe are like, I don't want to hear it very much. We still have to make sure we tell the truth. Now, there's something called lies of omission. Lies of omission is when we omit something. We don't share something. It's where we leave out important information. We conceal the whole truth. If we lie by omitting pertinent information, is that breaking this ethical concept? What do we think? Let me know in the chats. If I omit information, if I leave out something really important, I conceal the truth, did I break the ethical principle of veracity? Yeah, I absolutely did. Because they can't make a decision that's in their best interest if they don't have the facts, if they don't have all of the information. All right, I've got a practice question for us. The nurse is in an elevator and observes 2 staff members discussing a client's condition. This is a big no-no, by the way. The nurse understands that this conversation may potentially violate which ethical principle? What do we think? What do we think? Impressive. You guys are awesome. Now, I want you guys to note something because a lot of us are from all over the country and even in other countries this morning. Did you guys notice how the questions we've had they're not state or country specific? It's not bringing in the word HIPAA, it's bringing in the word confidentiality. When you take the NCLEX exam, you are going to get these type of statements. They will not be like state specific, okay? It's not going to be state specific for the NCLEX exam. All right, let's see how we did. Nice, confidentiality, absolutely. You got it, you got it. All right, legal concepts. This is probably the driest part of the lecture is going through these legal concepts, but they are so important. Okay, I really want you all to feel comfortable when it comes to these legal concepts. So let's start through these. The two terms that I see get mixed up and confused are advanced directives and living wills. So what an advance directive is it is a set of instructions that someone has prepared in advance of them getting sick, and it determines what their healthcare wishes are. Many times people will have these as they're getting older because they understand, hey, I'm going to get sicker eventually. And what this document tells us is it's going to tell us what the client wants if something were to happen to them. Now, with this, who would be in charge of implementing an advance directive? Does anyone know what that term is called? Anyone know what term I'm talking about? If there was a person who was going to implement healthcare wishes, what would we call them? Let's say an individual has 3 kids and I need to know which one of those kids is the decision maker. Power of attorney. Yeah. DPOA. You got it. Absolutely. We're looking at who is the power of attorney, who have they set aside that can verbally make those decisions. Now I'm going to go on a sidebar here. This is not important for the NCLEX, but I think it's so important off of being with so many people in the dying stage, whether they've been in the ICU or whether they've been in hospice. Make sure that your loved ones know what you want. Or if you have a loved one that's, older, make sure you know what they want so that you can honor them through that. I can't tell you the number of times that as a nurse, I've seen loved ones not know what their family member wants, and it eats at them at the end of life. And so it's really hard for them because they're like, I just don't know. I never had this conversation. I didn't think I was going to have this conversation. Have the conversation. I had someone tell me that when I was first a nurse, and I was like, you are so right. This conversation is so important to have. Now, a living will is a little different. It is a type of an advance directive, and it becomes really effective when someone's going to be terminally ill, and it's a legal document, but this is really going to specify, what the client wants, doesn't want. That's more so going to be the living will. So these are just a little bit different than each other. And here, that's where, they should specify, are they a DNR? Are they a full code? What specific instructions? Maybe they're okay with being coded, but they don't want to be intubated, right? Like there's very specifics that need lined out. All right. There's a lot of info here, but let me tell you the big things. Number 1, EMTs. If someone calls an EMT, the EMT is going to provide emergency care. Now, some states do honor advance directives from another state, but others do not. It is kind of state specifically. So if they are permanently moving, we are going to want to make sure that they update their advance directive. They do not expire, but whatever one is the most recently edited or created, that's going to be the one that they follow. And if there's nobody available to make a decision for the client, they're going to utilize 2 physicians in most cases to evaluate the client and decide what is in their best interest. But it's 2 physicians. It's not going to be just one. Now, we talked a little bit about medical power of attorney. So I do want to go into this a little bit more. But what the medical power of attorney is going to do is it's going to designate a person. So that way, if things change or if something's not outlined in their legal documents, that they have a medical power of attorney who can then make those decisions. And so sometimes it's the person's spouse, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a sibling, sometimes it's a kid, sometimes it's their neighbor next door. It just depends on who the individual is. Now, I'm seeing a lot of people being like, hey, I really want these slides. If you have Archer Review for the NCLEX, we have a whole on-demand video with the slides on legal and ethical concepts. All right. Now, here's some more legal terminology. These are tricky. I recommend kind of memorizing these and making connections that make sense to you so that you can remember them. So the first one is a tort, and a tort is a wrongful act. It doesn't specify verbal or physical. It's just a wrongful act of a right. Then we've got negligence. Negligence is when we don't do something we should. Negligence to me is like, okay, I have kids. So if I didn't feed or clothe or bathe my kids, that's negligence, right? I failed to do something I should. I always think of like being lazy is kind of what leads to negligence. That's how I've remembered it in my head. Not always, not saying that's always the case, but that's what I think of to remember it. Then malpractice is the next one. And this is when the negligence is something legal or it's improper professional activity. For example, what does that mean? I am an educated nurse, right? The bachelor's degree, I'm educated. I know when something is right or wrong in the nursing world. And so if I don't listen to that, that can lead to malpractice. If I do something outside of my scope of practice and I decide I'm going to go ahead and put a breathing tube in this client, that's malpractice because that's outside of my scope. I know I shouldn't be doing that. I'm educated enough to know that I should not be doing that. Then there's assault and battery. And this is how I remember it. A comes before B. Assault is going to typically be verbal. Okay, it's a threat. It's verbal. Battery comes then when there's actual physical contact. And then lastly, there's false imprisonment. Kind of the best way I can think of false imprisonment is if we incorrectly use medications that keeps the client sedated, or if we incorrectly use restraints, right? That's false imprisonment when we don't let somebody leave. So most of the times, if somebody is in the hospital and they're like, Rachel, I'm going to leave, I have them fill out a form and they can go. I had a client once who was smoking a cigarette in their ICU room. And I said, you cannot do that here. That needs put out. So he decided to leave. He wanted to go smoke. He didn't want to, have to get up to do it. So he's like, okay, I'm out of here. Left the ICU barely walking, but he left. He signed paperwork. He was alert and oriented. Now, where this gets different is if they're not alert and oriented, right? Or if they're a harm to themselves or others. That's when that situation differs, right? If they are at risk for harm to themselves or others, they can be put on a mandatory hold in a mental health unit or behavioral health unit. Or if they're not alert and oriented and they're totally confused of what's going on, right? I'm not going to just let them go leave because client safety is a priority here. All right, here is our practice question. The nurses attended a staff education program about sources of negligent lawsuits. It would indicate effective understanding if the nurse identifies which of the following. I'm seeing another question. Hey, can we please get the slides? For free webinars, we do not send out the slides, but if you have Archer Review in the on-demand for NCLEX specifically, you will be able to find, if they're not the exact same slides, they're very, very similar. All right, let's take 10 more seconds. Negligence. The nurse does not notify. Do you notice how typically negligence is we didn't do something we should have? It's like we took the back seat to something. That's negligence. We didn't let the provider know. Now, the nurse treats their spouse in the acute care facility with prescribed medications. Yeah, we probably shouldn't care for, a loved one. So we definitely don't want to be doing that. If you think of it, there's a conflict of interest there for sure. And then the nurse documents care under another nurse's username and password. That is a big no-no. We are not sharing passwords. We're not sharing things. And the reason why is what if a mistake was made and now it's under the wrong nurse? The wrong nurse could take a fall for that. We never are letting anyone have our logins. And then the nurse takes pictures of a client's medical record and distributes them online. That is a problem, right? What do we break when we do that? When we distribute those online, what is that? We just violated their privacy. That is an intentional tort. We did that on purpose. We knew what we were doing when we did it. An unintentional tort is like we didn't realize it was wrong, but it was wrong. An intentional tort is I knew what I was doing was wrong when I committed it. All right, here's another one. The nurse cares for an unconscious client with a dissecting aortic aneurysm that needs urgent surgery. The client's family cannot be tracked. What's the priority action? What are we going to do? There's no legal paperwork. We can't find the family members. What are we going to do in this scenario? All right, let's see. How do we do? Send the client to surgery. They are going to surgery. We're going to assume implied consent. Now, here's the other thing. We should know when on admission, we should ask these questions of, do you have a durable power of attorney? Do you have, right? Like we ask them if they have these things on admission. But let's say they just came into the ED. We don't know who they are. We don't know who their family is, right? That situation could happen. If we don't have the right information for us to know, they need to go to surgery. It's called assumed consent, like implied consent in those scenarios. All right, let's do another one. The nurse is caring for a client who's asking about advanced directives. Many documents fall under the category of an advanced directive. The nurse knows that one of the most common legal papers is called durable power of attorney for healthcare. And what does it work to do? Yeah, because it's considered an emergency. That's why. Because if we tried to contact our, manager, the client could be dead by the time we've done that and gotten an answer. They need to go right to surgery when they have a dissecting aorta aneurysm. When you purchase an account, you'll then start it when you log in to Archer Review. All right, how do we do? How do we do? Good. It gives somebody else the permission to make a decision. If they can't, it's not outlined in that legal paperwork, or if something has changed, that individual can then make that decision for them. Perfect. All right, I'm not going to go through HIPAA. Really, the big reason why is that is more US specific. So I am going to kind of skip over that portion, but I do want to talk about how to protect client information, because this is something you could totally see on the NCLEX exam. We don't keep our computers on, right? When we are done charting, or let's say somebody has something going on, I'm going to log out and then I'm going to go to whatever I need to do. It's really nice nowadays. We typically have a badge that we literally can just scan and it will log it off or log us on. So it makes it a lot quicker. We're not constantly logging in and out. The other thing is we don't want to speak about clients in public spaces. If we're sitting at lunch together, it's not appropriate to talk about a client. If it's not someone who's directly taking care of that individual and needs to know what's going on, they don't need to know it. I always say, if it's not someone in direct care of that client, I'm not saying anything about it. We're better off to be quiet than to get ourselves into trouble, right? Even if other people are doing it, doesn't mean that it's right. And then this one's obvious, but I am going to share it. Be careful of photos that you take. I cannot tell you the number of times that someone takes a selfie or they take a photo and there's personal information of a client in the background. People get fired for that. People lose their nursing license over that. Don't let it happen to you. And I know it sounds so obvious until it happens, right? Until it happens to someone and they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize there was patient information in the background. Just be extra cautious. And then we do want to make sure that we don't send any of that personal health information to our personal emails. We should shred it after we're done utilizing it. And we're only opening charts of clients we're taking care of. So here is our practice question. The nurse is planning a staff development conference about confidentiality. Which of the following scenarios should the nurse include as a violation of client confidentiality? This is the wording I would expect you to see on the NCLEX, by the way. Notice how it doesn't say HIPAA directly. It says confidentiality. If it's a Good Samaritan, the Good Samaritan can update us on what's going on. We cannot then go update the Good Samaritan on how things are going. No, we could not then give them the update back unless we had client, permission to do so. Sometimes they will give permission, others don't. We can't just openly share that information. Usually what I do in that situation is I will ask the client, do you want to see this individual? And if they do, I'll let them give the update. If they're really, really sick and they give me permission, then that's different than I can give the update. But if the client's capable, I let them tell people what they want to. That's not always my position to do. There are cases it is my position to do, but there are cases it is not. So if the client's able, I want them to have the opportunity to share what they want and not share the things they don't want to. All right, let's see. How do we do? Yeah, this broke it. Absolutely. We can't tell them that information. Perfect. Informing a visitor of the room number of a client admitted with pneumonia. So when we think of this one specifically, we just have to be careful. Like directory information can be disclosed sometimes, but we do have to ask permission, right? Like we have to ask the client permission. Are you okay if I share this? So we just have to be extra cautious. Now, if you are like, hey, this was helpful to me. I am, considering taking my NCLEX, but I'm not sure if I'm quite ready yet. Or, hey, Rachel, I'm in nursing school and I am overwhelmed by all the assignments I've got going on, and I need help studying for, midterms coming up here. Or maybe you don't know a good study plan and you're struggling with time management. We offer private tutoring here at Archer Review. And the goal of tutoring is to really have someone there to support you and guide you in whatever it is that you might need through nursing school, through the NCLEX, because we want you guys to join us in the nursing profession. And sometimes all that takes is a little extra support. Maybe you need help going through, NGN style questions or traditional or SATA questions. We can help you with pretty much anything nursing school or NCLEX related. If you're interested, you can scan that QR code. Our private tutoring books up pretty quick. I'm going to be honest. We have been filling our private tutoring slots and always opening more to fill that need for you all. But if you're interested in that QR code's not working, you can also just search Archer Review Tutors. Make sure you're on the Archer Review website and go to our tutor profiles. All their options will be listed. Just one other heads up on tutoring. Sometimes we have people on social media fake to be a tutor. Never buy tutoring through chat messages, whether it's WhatsApp or Messenger or any of those things. Those are scammers. Make sure you're on our actual website and book it from there. All right. So I want you guys to think, what are some ways that we can make sure our documentation is accurate and efficient? We've got just a couple minutes left. And as you guys are thinking of this, as you're thinking about how you would want to document, what I always say when it comes to legal ethical concepts, how would I want my loved one treated? If you think about that, if you think about how you would want your loved one treated, it can really help you make sure that you're treating your patients similar. Right? If I, wouldn't want the nurse to not check on my loved one for 3 hours, I shouldn't be doing that to the clients that I care for. I want to provide a high quality care that leaves my clients and their family members feeling confident in the care that's going to be provided, to where they can go meet their basic needs as well. And so we really want to make sure that we are thinking through our actions that we do every single day as a nurse, whether that's our attitude, whether that's how we communicate with people, whether it's the professional actions we take of giving medications and doing cares, right? We want to make sure that we always have a high level of integrity so that our clients have the trust in us that they deserve to have. Like, they deserve to have top-notch care every single time they're in the hospital, every single time they're in a long-term care setting, every single time that they go into a clinic. And we get to decide what level of care we provide, and we should always try to provide the best possible care we can. All right, let's see. What'd you guys say? Subjective versus objective. Yeah, we want to be objective in our assessments, especially when we're charting. We want to make sure we chart what we do. We don't chart it before we did it. And if it's not charted, it didn't happen. Whenever I think about charting, I think about, what if this went to court? Did I chart what I needed to so that it was clear of the care I provided and what occurred? If it's not clear, if it's not charted, it didn't happen. If it couldn't stand up in court, then I need to improve my charting, right? I need to make sure I chart thoroughly and accurately. All right. Amazing. Amazing. What questions do you guys have? Let me know any questions you have in the chat. I'll stay a couple minutes to answer those. But thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Let me know what questions you guys have. Any questions that I can answer? If you're on Zoom, you can post them in the chat or in the Q&A. Got those both pulled up. If you're like, hey, I really need some tips, I'm about to take the NCLEX. That's what private tutoring is for. Any other questions? Was today helpful? Did you feel like you got benefit? Okay, someone said how to prepare for the NCLEX in 1 month. Well, typically I recommend actually 6 to 12 weeks. of NCLEX prep. If you're a first-time test taker, 6 weeks, or if you work several jobs and have a lot of time commitments, or a repeat test taker, I usually recommend 12 weeks. I've worked with a lot of repeat test takers, and typically I say the 12 weeks. And the reason why, this is my mindset, guys. If you're going to do it right. Make sure that you do it right. Give it all you've got, because no matter the result, I don't want you to walk out of the exam with regrets. The amount of times I've had people say, hey, Rachel, I gave only about 60% effort and I'm devastated because I failed. Or I did this, but wasn't consistent. I wish I would have just did it better the first time. Make this next attempt your last attempt. And you do that by making sure you have a structured plan. You show up every day, you're consistent. Archer Review really takes the guesswork out of what you need to do each day, because we have study calendars right in your dashboard. So if you purchase an NCLEX package with us, you get that, right? You just go to your study calendars. There's a 6 or 12-week option. You choose the one you want and you follow it every day. Now, I get it. Some days are harder than others. Some days you're going to be like, Rachel, I'm so burnt out, I can't do anything. Do a little something on those days, but also listen to your self needs. That's okay to do, as long as you show up tomorrow, as long as you show up stronger the next day, okay? Really important that you're consistent. Consistency is where I see the difference made of someone who passes and doesn't. When I see somebody working really hard to do it, they're showing up every day, they're doing all the steps, and they really work on the why, and they work on being active and engaged. That's when I see people passing their NCLEX exam. And it's not to say that you did something wrong before, but what you didn't work. Let's do it better the next time. All right, what other questions do I recommend? Okay, let me just pull up. Give me one second here. All right, is everyone seeing my Google tab up here? It looks like we are. Perfect. So what you're gonna do, go to Archer Review. I'm just gonna show you guys, because lots of you are asking me, what package do I need? I'm just gonna show you all of them in like a 1-minute little spiel. Okay, so if you go to Archer Review and you go to nursing, if you are in nursing school, this is what you get, nursing school. If you're a PN or RN, click whichever one is applicable to you. And the package I recommend for just about everybody out there is the SurePass package. That's the one that includes the 3-day live. It includes our Q-Bake. It includes live lectures Monday through Friday. You'll click buy now and you can purchase it here. It's a 60-day package. For $159, I always recommend the 90 days, because you might as well just pay $10 extra for a whole 30 days. And typically that will allow you then to do that 12-week study plan. All right, what other questions do we have? Is 3 months a lot for NCLEX prep, or is it not? That's an appropriate amount of time. 3 months is a good amount of time. I don't want you to spend 6 months to a year. I think there's a lot of knowledge that can be lost in that time. But I always say 6 to 12 weeks. So you're looking at, anywhere from a month and a half to 3 months. All right, what other questions do we have? Is NCLEX Archer material enough for prep? Absolutely. Absolutely, it's enough. I say that because I see students use it every day and it is sufficient. We at Archer Review are constantly working on developing new materials for you, making sure our Q bank is really clear and up to date and in line with the NCLEX, and making sure that our on-demand videos are beneficial to you. Absolutely, Archer Review is enough for you to pass the exam when used correctly. How I think of this, and Annie, if you need to go, sorry, I got on my high horse, you can head out whenever. But how I think of this is I can give you the tools, but if you use a hammer to try to put a screw in, right, it's not going to work. You have to use the tools the right way. If you just leave the tools in the corner and you don't use them, you're not going to build a house. You build the house by utilizing the tools correctly and how they're intended. So that doesn't mean there's not any flexibility, because all of you study differently and you all have different learning styles, and that's great. but you do have to use the product to its fullest ability in order to be successful. And that's why I always say be cautious of using several resources. I usually like one. And the reason why is because I want you to use it to its fullest. If you have 10 different things going on and 10 different ways that people are telling you to do things, you can't use anything to its fullest. And it makes it more confusing, more difficult, and more likely for you to have gaps. All right. If you have a question, someone said, I've been emailing Archer. I really need a tutor session for this Monday. Please email nclextutors@archerreview.com. Just put my name in it. Right. This is for Rachel. I'll make sure I email you back today on that. Just shoot us an email. I'll make sure you get a response. I'm not sure why you haven't yet. nclextutors with an S. Sometimes that part gets forgotten at archerreview.com. If you, for some reason, you don't get a response, email support@archerreview.com. They can help you as well. Okay. Yeah, reach out again, Lily. Reach out again. I'll make sure I respond to it. Okay. You guys are awesome. You're amazing. Thank you for being a part of the Archer Review family. Good luck to each and every one of you, whether you're in nursing school, whether you're prepping for your NCLEX exam, or you're somewhere in the middle. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions you have. We would gladly help. I hope you all have a great weekend.